So I'll start off to my right over here to your left. We'll have folks introduce and we'll go around. Yes.
Hi, you guys. I'm Miss Lehrman. I'm new. This is my first year here at San Dimas. I teach English, 9th grade and 10th grade.
Coulter.
Wow, thanks, Coulter. And what do you teach around here, Mr. Coulter?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Coulter. Nothing else needs to be said.
I teach accelerated sophomores and irregular juniors.
And I know you've been in teaching for a number of years as well.
Right. Yeah, I came over to Bonita Unified from Riverside Unified School District, where I taught at Martin Luther King High School and Ramona High School and Earhart Middle, and now I'm here. I'm glad to be here. So.
Okay, thank you very much. And I know we both have a shared passion, some graduate school experience too. My name is Dave Milbrand. I'm an English teacher at San Dimas High School. I've been here 13 years, I believe it is. I handle accelerated sophomores and some regular sophomores as well. So my humor sophomore, and so are my students.
I'm Travis Fuller, and I'm in 11th grade.
Hi, I'm Romina Baronia, and I am a senior.
Hi, I'm Brianna Barba, and I'm a senior too.
Okay, thank you very much for the introductions here. I'm going to serve as moderator, basically. I'm going to ask some questions. We're going to go around the room here with these guys. Some will share. Some will choose not to on certain questions. Let me start off here. I like to begin any kind of conversation like this with some positives. And so I'll ask some people to share. What are some of the acts of kindness that you've seen? I'll share a couple, and then we'll get going here. Two of them I come to think of, and they're both relatively recent, one of which actually just happened last evening. It's a very small one. I had a student forget some homework in the classroom, and another student took it home with them. And I get this frantic email late at night. Oh my gosh, Mr. Milbrand, so-and-so left their work, but I've got it. Can I make sure I turn it in so they get credit for it and they don't miss the points? Now, that student didn't need to bother with that. It wasn't necessary. They could have held on to it. The student could have had a consequence, but they cared about their other classmate. I thought that was pretty cool. Another one a bit more serious is I have a student that I have who has suffered the loss of a relative, and it's shaken up the student pretty badly. And as I've been talking with the student, and they have another friend of theirs, they said, oh yeah, this person's a friend of mine. And they lost a relative too. And that person is helping my student out through some of the grief and struggle. I thought it was really kind of cool because, again, it's not required. It's nice that it happens, but it's really sort of a nifty act of kindness that's being extended one student to another to help someone in need that is really struggling with something. What are some acts of kindness that you guys have seen, of student to student, student to teacher, things like that?
Well, for one thing, there was a student that helped a lot of kids on their math homework, and it's called, what we call them are AMs. And so we were nearing finals, and everyone was just trying to get them finished in order to survive the final. And so this one student, he put all his time to the side in order to help his classmates that were struggling to make sure they succeed. So he didn't care that they would take an hour of his time. He would just keep helping them consistently in order to make sure that they understand and that they could be able to do well on that final.
Oh, very cool, very cool. What are some other examples you've seen out there, some kindness we've seen?
Well, one of the things I see on a regular basis where my room is located is just a really kind interaction between students who are being serviced by our specialized education teachers and our students who aren't in that community and the way they interact. I see a lot of compassion when they interact, and I wasn't surprised by it, but just there's a willingness for students who are, say, just passing through the quad who interact with the students who are in the specialized education climate to actually stop, sit down, and have a meaningful conversation with students who otherwise really don't get exposed to the rest of you guys. So while you guys are out, at lunchtime near the bell tower and doing what you do, there's a population of our students who don't get to have that experience. And I see a lot of you guys actually, when you walk through that area where the queue and the R rooms are, you actually stop and you're really human to these kids. And they're great people anyway, so I would expect nothing less, but I'm just really impressed with the kindness that I've seen displayed as those two populations kind of interact. So if that makes sense.
And I see a lot of that as well. It's really cool to see at rallies where they're included in the rallies there as well. You see them sometimes playing in a sport. They're going to get up to bat or be in a game here. But one of the neat things I get to see also is like when I've substituted for a special ed class and I get to be in there, and the energy in that room is just amazing. The staff is supportive and we really worked well together. But wanting to learn, to be excited about that process, you just feed off that vibe there. So it's really neat to be realizing that we're all sort of a community together and not feeling necessarily separated, and we interact together to be really genuine. So what are some other things we see? What are some other examples we have from the panel up here?
Specifically, my sophomores did a personal narrative. So they were to stand up and kind of talk about either a hardship in their life or something really great in their life. And I ended up having a student who had transferred from another school because he was a victim of bullying, severe bullying. It was hard for him to speak out about it, but he did, and he expressed that although he's at a new school and no longer being bullied, he still feels alone. He doesn't have that many friends. Over the course of the year, I have been able to see my students in that class really support him, reach out to him. He's made some really great friends within my class, great connections, and it was just one of those situations where my students really reacted to the pain that this student was feeling, and they showed empathy, and they kind of really rallied around him. So it really touched me, and when we talk about kindness, that's one of the things that just comes to my mind was that moment.
And I do something similar with Moment That Mattered, kind of a personal narrative story, and to see them talk about significant events, and you're sitting there saying, okay, are the students going to get angry? Or are they going to say, oh gosh, why are they having this emotional outburst? Or are they going to be compassionate? And to really see them kind of applaud or cheer, comfort, something like that is really kind of neat. Anything else out there where you see kindness, some examples of that?
I think on a more like general thing, I think what's great about San Dimas High School is there's a lot of tolerance towards diversity, whether it's like religious or like sexual orientation. People here don't really care. Like everyone's pretty okay with whatever. And I think what's great about that is that we're raising people in an environment where it's okay to be who you are, so that when they go out into the world, they're comfortable with themselves, so that they don't need to like have like that like midlife crisis where they're like, oh, who am I? Like, what am I doing with my life? So yeah.
Yeah, Brianna.
Just going off of that, I really have been thankful for that on our campus. Like personally, I identify as a Christian, and I've just seen like an increase in just the respect for like religion and being able to have like these really awesome conversations about it, and not necessarily like pushing beliefs on each other, but like expressing my beliefs with somebody and somebody with another belief being able to express theirs with mine, and just the respect that has been shown to me and that I've seen in other people it's been really amazing, and I really like that.
And that's exciting to hear, because we as teachers, I know, are always worried, okay, I want to have this dialogue and conversation in my classroom, how the student's going to respond. We're afraid there might be some tension drawn, but I've had a lot of them, and people tend to be fairly respectful, and I'm glad to see that's around campus as well. Okay. What are some areas where we need some growth? What are some challenging areas where we've seen where kindness isn't always shared? We see a lot of it here. We appreciate the diversity. We appreciate the kindness and empathy that we see in different groups. But there's sometimes where it's not. Where it's not always as nice and bright and rosy as we would like. What are some things we can think of there? I'll jump in first so we can ponder some of those. I have this sort of joke that's running, whether it's nice or not, it sort of is in my head that as I enter campus, I know what kind of day it's going to be, depending on how soon it takes me to hear someone else cuss somebody else out. And typically it's a joke. But when you're walking onto campus and one freshman's calling another freshman an effing whore, that ain't funny. I've heard it, because it still stuck in my head. It's been many years. Hopefully no one in this room, because I think it's been past then. And forgive the language there, but it happens. And it's a joke, but those kind of words I know are not the same as your generations of mine, but they are hurtful. And we have such a cavalier nature with words where we say, oh, I can just cuss someone out or use this phrase here, and it doesn't have any meaning, doesn't have any cachet or value. But a generation that keeps hearing those and keeps degrading people, it just hurts me. Sometimes I call people out on it. Sometimes people don't even realize they're using it, that kind of language. People use, 5 or 6 F-bombs in 2 minutes. I'm like, that's just an adjective for them. That's not something that is a real word, but in me that is a real word, and is a real word that has power and often is inflicted with pain. Sometimes racial epithets, but much less than will make sense. But just a lot of what I would call profane language. I identify as a Christian as well, so not necessarily my vocabulary, but it's in a lot of vocabulary of some of the people I see. Students and sometimes teachers as well, and it's kind of hurtful.
Well, I'm going to start with teachers. Excuse me, and just say that one of the things, like I'm only privy to my classroom, so I wish I could be on the fly on the wall for all of the great things that happen in some of your other teachers' classes, but one thing I know I've had to grow in and need to continue to grow in is the ability to be apologetic. There are, one thing that I emphasize in my class is the fact that teachers are humans as well, so we bring who we are to work, just like you bring who you are to the classroom. So if I'm going through a life crisis and there's no way to extricate that from my life, so I'm gonna come to school and I'm gonna do my best to do my job. But I believe that we're all integrated. So what you are at home is you bring out. You're gonna pack your emotional bags and bring your bags with you to work. So, but when you disrespect a student, for instance, and I know I have before, maybe it's an overreaction because a kid that never turns in anything and is always distracted, that might be my perception. And if I overreact and say I embarrass that student in public or in front of his peers or her peers, I have to be human enough to go back and make that right as soon as I can. I used to work at Vons when I was in high school, and we had a sign back in the kind of in our room where all of our stock was, and it said, if you make a mess, you clean it up. And it was on the door, actually, so that if you swung the door open really quickly and you knocked somebody over and they were bleeding, they were basically like, that's what they meant. They were like, if you make a mess, you got to clean that dude up because he might, whatever. So anyway, but I just believe as a teacher, that's one of the things that I remember being in your seats because I never thought I was ever going to be a teacher. And I know what it was like to be profiled, so to speak, for somebody to not believe in you. I knew what it felt like to feel like a teacher hates you and to quit because of that. And I always said it, once I became a teacher, I always said, the thing I got to work on every day is kindness. It's something that simple. I think that if I don't establish that as a baseline for my relationship with students, if they're intimidated by me because I'm tall, or even because I'm African American, maybe they've had negative experiences with African Americans, and I've had students who were African American and they just didn't like me. Then I've got to go the extra mile to try to be kind. I've got to make them know that I have no personal vendetta, and that does take effort. It doesn't happen by accident. So I think that, and starting from the professional side, whether we're administrators or professionals on campus, we have to take seriously the role that kindness plays in our interaction with students. So.
Absolutely, I know apology has been a big thing for me, and I make mistakes a lot. My students can tell you, they know. But apologizing to them when I make a mistake is so empowering and freeing because we know that we're human, and that's okay. Kayla, you have some thoughts?
Yeah, going off of the of what Coulter said, I think in order a lot of the times for us to be able to have that opportunity to apologize to students or to you guys, to each other, is to make the other person aware that they hurt you or offended you. A lot of the times I think we as humans say things that we don't even realize may have hurt someone or may have had an effect on someone, a negative effect. So to come to myself or one of your teachers or one of your peers as, person to person and just say, hey, that hurt my feelings and I didn't appreciate that. And so we could have that open dialogue doing that, whereas, talking behind that person's back, this person said this, and she's such a blank, and he's such a this. Coming to the person one-to-one and having that respect for that person is, it's a path of kindness as well, because that opens the door for that dialogue and that respect. And it's something that I think I need to work on as well. It takes a lot of courage to go up to somebody and say, hey, what you said hurt me or what you said offended me, and I just want to kind of talk about it and see where we are. So it's not only you guys, it's teachers as well, and teachers say things behind people's back that they sometimes, wish they wouldn't have said, or they're venting, they didn't necessarily mean. I've never said a bad thing about any student I've ever had, so. Just kidding. But, but to have that respect to go up to the person instead of saying something behind that person's back, I think can nip some of the negativity in the bud.
And just going off of what you said, like kindness is an umbrella. Once you open it, there are many things that are part of that umbrella. And so respect is one of them, and being and like just having a conversation, having communication with your teachers about like that you've hurt them or that they hurt you. I'm sorry. Is pretty important so that you could keep that respect between the two of you, because I remember I had a teacher where he was pressuring me while I was taking a test, and I already felt degraded enough already in that class. And so he was pressuring me on the fact that I had to finish, but because I couldn't finish on time, that I was probably going to fail on the next exam. And so, like, right then and there, like, I just lost all my respect for him, and I felt really unworthy. But the problem was that I chose not to go to him and, like, say, hey, like, what you did then really hurt me, And because of that, I just feel really dumb and stupid, because I chose not to do that because of my own pride, and I just didn't want to talk to him. I wanted to just be like, I'm going to hold a grudge to him. That's what I'm going to do. And personally, I kind of regret that, because I wish that mutual respect could be fixed. And so that's why I think it's very important that keeping that communication so that respect is still there is really important, because it's all about being kind to each other in order to make yourself a better person.
I think along the lines of that, there's also it's not just a student issue, but I think it's also a faculty issue. Students aren't going to want to reach out to their teacher and say that they hurt them if they think that the teacher isn't going to listen. And I think that there are some amazing teachers who are very apologetic and who are willing to like acknowledge their faults and apologize and fix it. But there are also some teachers that come off as though they don't want to listen, and as though they believe that because they are the adult, they are all-knowing and that they can do no wrong to the student. And I think we've all had teachers like that. And so I think part of being able to fix this issue is, just getting the faculty to be more open to speaking with students candidly and allowing their students to tell them when they feel like they've been wronged honestly. So that way we can begin this dialogue about how we can go further and fix it.
And I think that's one of the challenges, because I know as faculty that being vulnerable is not easy. And we perceive it as being vulnerable because we're afraid of what's going to happen. We can do math, even if we teach English, and 35 to 1 are not good odds. They're not. And my students who know me may have heard the story of the hot sauce. I always like to tell it. My name, Mr. Milbrandt's on my board. And if you look really closely at, I think, the N in Milbrandt there, you can see these little red marks. That's where students one year decided to throw hot sauce at me. It's Del Taco hot sauce packets. Please don't throw them at your teachers. They couldn't actually aim very well, so I was pretty lucky. But they threw them toward me, and it's still up on my wall. And I remember that because that's sort of how I feel that, when I was a younger teacher and I wasn't as confident, that these kind of things could happen. Nowadays, people look at that and go like, seriously? Because I'm not that teacher anymore, and I don't have the style anymore. I have a better rapport with my students, and that wouldn't take place. But I know those kinds of fears occur. I don't have to validate per se, but I know they're thinking that. So creating an environment where teachers can be open and connect with students, and there can be trust there. That it's not going to be 35 against 1 you had on your desk and hopefully you get out alive. But it's going to be where we have a dialogue and we have a conversation where it's like, okay, I messed up, I'm sorry, you messed up, it's okay, we work through it. So I see that there could be that challenge there where the fear is what drives the behavior. as opposed to the respect there. That's part of it. Travis, anything you'd like to see that we could improve on?
Well, I think the thing, just kind of going off the whole respect aspect, is as teenagers, we're in this like awkward stage where we are told that we need to act like adult, but we're still treated as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that's where like we want to have this mutual respect between like ourselves and the teachers and the faculty, but we're not given it because like they still see us like, oh, we're the adult, you're the student. Like, I don't know, it's just kind of like an awkward mix that I don't really know exactly how to fix. Because it kind of depends on the person. Like, there's a lot of teachers, like obviously you guys, who are very open to like speaking to their students and like having like this like mutual respect and are open with their life. Like Mr. Coulter does a lot in his class. He's very open about like his life and his experiences that he's had. So that creates like, if he's willing to share, then we're willing to share too. And most teachers won't do that. So I don't really know like how to break down those walls, because a lot of teachers there's like these different pedestals, like the students are down here and the teachers are up here. So like I don't know how to make it equal.
Well, and part of the issue needs to be language. A lot of faculty and adults on campus refer to students as kids. I hate that word. My 3-year-old niece is a kid. She's a kid. She needs to take a nap, but doesn't anymore. But she's a 3-year-old. You guys are students. My students in 2 years will have the ability to be an adult, buy a home, and go to war. They still have to ask for a bathroom pass right now. It's part of the regulations, which I understand, but we also need to not treat them as little kids in big bodies. We need to treat them as growing people that are going to be adults in a couple of years and sort of begin that paradigm shift. And for that to happen, then we have these kinds of dialogues. Someone needs to run a room and be in charge, but also we need to have sort of a level playing field where we can, I think. What about you guys?
I mean, I think, Travis, going back to what you were saying, that as teachers, and I think as a newer teacher, my perspective is that you want to have that vulnerability with your students, but you also want there to be a fine line, you know? And I think that fine line can oftentimes come off as, I'm the teacher, you're the student, whereas teachers are, and I'm just speaking from my perspective, just kind of trying to have that buffer around themselves where lines aren't crossed. And I myself am still trying to figure that out, where we can have relationships and have real human relationships, and the fact that, you know, I know what's going on in your life and you know what's going on in my life, but not to the point where it's, I don't want to use the word inappropriate, but do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's that buffer that we want to put around ourselves.
Yeah,
You can
I
probably
think,
help me out.
I don't know if I can help you out, but I can say that, like, the interesting thing about kindness is I don't think that kindness requires trust. You can be kind to a stranger you don't know, but when you see people every day for 180 days, trust as it's built will remove the debris that gets in the way of the kindness. So I think that buffer you're talking about, there are limits, you know, and some of those are legal. Like as mandated reporters, as teachers, we are required by law to behave a certain way. So for instance, if I'm all about being kind, and there are ways to deliver a certain message, but let's say I hear students talking negatively about a colleague, and it's suggestive, and there are legal implications. Like they're suggesting things about another teacher and throwing it around kind of casually, and it's stuff that could cause that teacher to lose their job. I'm stepping in. I got to say something about that. Now, I don't have to be a jerk about it, but I have to help you as students understand that I realize you may not understand that these words have a certain power in our society, but that could cost this teacher their job. So let me ask you a specific question, and this is something I do. I'll engage those students and say, are you serious? You're making an accusation that sounds very serious, and you're joking about it, but are you serious? If you're serious, there's a way to go down that path. If you're not serious, you need to cease and desist with that right now. And there are those moments where it becomes like mentor to mentee. But there's a respect in that. Like just because we are mentors as teachers doesn't mean that we should ever be condescending or that we should treat you as if you must kneel before Zod, you know, like that's not what that's not what I'm after, man. I don't need anybody to worship me. In fact, somebody asked me the other day, a student said, man, but what if they don't listen? What if they don't relate to you? You from the hood, Mr. Coulter. I was like, and? I am, and I share those narratives. I was like, but my job is not to convert you guys to think like me, believe like me, act like me. My job is to put the message out there, lay it out for you to play it out. And beyond that, I've done my job, you know. So you're right, there is a negotiation that we have to do. And I think what is on the part of the student as well, like trust can be built the more you show kindness to your teachers, respect them, ask them how their day is going. And it goes both ways. I think that oftentimes we teachers get caught up in our stuff, but we build trust over this 180 something days, and it helps with the kindness, you know. But there's still some boundaries, so it's a tough thing to figure out.
I hate to do this. We have a couple minutes left here. I'm going to do a once around here, some thoughts here as we look to how to encourage a culture of kindness on campus. What things can we do? What are some concrete things we can do to make St. Amos High School more kind?
I think, going off of the word empathy, really putting yourself in somebody else's shoes is a big thing. And I think with things that have been going on in our country, just empathizing with the fact that things are messy right now, and some people might be feeling that more deeply than you, and just because that person is feeling that deeply or feeling anything in their life doesn't mean they're overly emotional or overly sensitive. But to be able to empathize with people more and really, see from different perspectives, I think can really perpetuate that kindness.
Yeah, being more open-minded and respecting each other's opinions about certain stuff really builds that area of kindness, because it not only it not only shows that you can trust them, but it shows that my respect for this person is building. Like, I could go to this person to discuss certain matters. I feel like my opinions matter when in other areas it doesn't. So that's how I feel like that's really important, that's something that should happen.
I think a couple of things. I think if more students play Fortnite together, I think I'm just kidding.
I got a speech on that in fourth period, Norman.
I'm kidding. No, I say keep your eyes open. I think if we all just have, I should have said that. But I think if all of us, you just have your eyes open, and you're going to gravitate every break and every lunch to the people that you normally spend time with. I stay in my room a lot. We have to kind of make a choice to go outside of our comfort zone. And if a person's eating alone, they shouldn't be eating alone. You know what I mean? Unless they want to. But I think if we have our eyes open and we're willing to engage, it's something we try to do in my class, and it's not easy. There's 2 minutes on the clock on the screen, and just go be human to people that you normally don't talk to. It's hard, but I think that that's a start. And I think that you guys can mobilize a club. You can do all kinds of things to kind of mobilize kindness initiatives. You can bring a bunch of students together, advertise it, do a video announcement or an announcement in second period, and just invite people to share ideas about how to create this culture that you want. The culture will be whatever you want it to be, but you've got to be intentional. And there's more y'all than there are of us. So, but I think most of us teachers are willing to partner with you in whatever you're trying to do down that line. So.
You could also keep a positive attitude, because, I see kindness as it's a factor for, or being positive is a factor for being kind. And, when you're just having that upbeat attitude and you go up to someone, be like, "Hey man, how you doing? How was your day?"
It's okay.
And exactly, that's the response, it got a smile on his face. And, if the whole science behind it is that it, lifts up their spirits. And I know it's going to be hard to keep a positive attitude, especially, you leave the weekend and you enter Monday. That's really hard. But,
Amen.
It's amazing what your acts of positivity can do to a person, because that's your way of showing someone that you're being kind. And by doing that, you're not only helping yourself, but you're helping that person. And, it just starts a domino effect. Like, they could hopefully do it to other people. And then, yeah, the result is amazing.
I think that we could really focus on what unifies us as a student body and a faculty. And instead of making it students against faculty, make it faculty and students like working towards our education and working towards making our school a better place.
Oh, may I add one more thing?
Quickly.
Okay. Careful what you post on social media.
Amen.
Like,
Seriously.
It's, like you guys, you think that no one's going to see it because they may not have that social media, but everyone finds out something eventually. Like,
It's called a screenshot. We all see it. Okay.
because you may be joking or not, words hurt, and it may be towards another person, but some outsider that's reading it feels affected by it. Like, I read like tweets about something about people criticizing other people on their body image or on their character, and I feel degraded myself, and I start saying, am I like this to my friends? And then I start finding myself trying not to be like that. And that I stop and I just stop being myself, because of those tweets. Those tweets start making me not the person who I am. And so please be careful what you're posting on social media, regardless that you're joking or not, because your words can affect outsiders regardless of who your target is.
And I think to just kind of go off what you said before, I mean, like, it sounds so simple and silly, but just, like, try and, like, smile as much as possible. Because, like, as I'm walking through the hallways, I try my best to, like, smile to people and, like, do whatever I can because, like, you don't know what's going on in people's lives. And, like, I don't know, it just makes people happy.
Sounds good. One last thought. I'm going to wrap up here. I was having a conversation with a colleague just today about curriculum. And a colleague wanted to use something in the classroom, and he had gotten some concerns about some actual bigotry that could occur because of the content that he might use. And I sat there and I thought, oh my gosh, it's 2018, we're in a culture where we talk about diversity, that we appreciate smiling and things like that here, and we're worried about backlash over something that's totally classroom appropriate, would be awesome, some things that I've used, and this teacher's worried about what kind of backlash could happen for a student or students. Stepping up and being more responsible for who we are and respecting people and being kind, taking ownership of it, I think is radically important. Thank you so much for coming out today. We really appreciate you. You have fourth period to get back to, so do I. Thank you very much and have a great day.